Chat is open, chat is active. I see y'all in here. Would love to get a conversation going. But LeBron James and Rich Paul, they are turning the narrative. They used a whiteboard to kind of put the information out there of where LeBron is thinking, or at least where we think LeBron is actually thinking. Now, do I think that Rich Paul would actually let us into the exact brain trust, the exact conversations that himself, Clutch, and LeBron are having? No, but I think it's a very interesting look at what potentially could be on the mind of not just Rich Paul, not just Clutch, but of one LeBron James. Because we all have to assume this has to be the last ride. This has to be the last dance. It's already been reported that he has some kind of documentary crew following him around. So clearly he is setting the table for his own last dance. I think that to me is where this goes to another level. This goes to a deeper personal level, because never before have we been in this type of room, and never before have we had this type of access to where we could see the agent of arguably, certainly the greatest player of this era. Some would say greatest of all time. I push back, but that's fine. But never before have we had access into the brain trust of arguably the greatest player of all time and his thought process as to where he's going to go next. And that's why I think this whole situation, if Clutch and them do it right, could be so unique. And I think Rich Paul, he's learning the media game from this POV as a content creator. We know he knows the media game from an agent perspective, being with LeBron for so long, but now he is learning the game from a content creating perspective. And that to me is extremely fascinating. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the whiteboard up, a screenshot of the whiteboard and what he was doing. And we're gonna put that up here on the screen. And let's go here with it. All right, so let's go to what part of the screen we want to go to. Let's go to this part of the screen. All right, so the Rich Paul whiteboard. Let me see. Matter of fact, let me just put the screen up, hard stop. All right, took myself off the screen. So the Rich Paul whiteboard is summarized as this. The core of the whiteboard, you're looking at the Sixers, the Heat, the Wolves, the Nuggets, and the Cavs. They are featured prominently, right? So that's talking about down here. Down here, because this is all of the LeBron James scenarios where how does Bron fit in with these rosters as constituted? So we're looking at, if we're talking about Philly, we got Maxey, and you see an asterisk next to Maxey, and we'll get into that in a second. Let's see, can we go even bigger with this? We can just a little bit. All right, so we got Maxey here with the asterisk, VJ Edgecombe, they got Jaylen Brown already in there, and Joel Embiid. So all of these scenarios are the starting fours plus LeBron, okay? So we have Philly here with Maxey, Edgecombe, Jaylen Brown, and Embiid, and then you have LeBron. Then if he was to go down to South Beach, right? A. Wiggins, the Nigerian freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Bam Adebayo, Davion Mitchell, and LeBron. Right now, off rip, even though the Miami one will be very sexy, there's a lot of storylines there, closing the chapter, spinning the block. There's been reports of LeBron and Pat Riley piecing, go back to Cleveland for now a third time and team up with Spider Mitchell, James Harden, Evan Mobley, and your man's Jared Allen, who the lights are still too bright. That's a conversation for me where if we're looking at these as the core of the teams that LeBron is actively trying to go to, if this is what we're looking at, then to me, Philly is the winner by far. Philly is the winner by far. But you see these ones on the peripheral, on the outside looking in, one would say. We're looking at Steph and Dre. Obviously, that's the Warriors, right? So we're looking at Steph and Dre. They're on the outside looking in. Dallas is a possibility as well. Dallas and Masai Ujiri, who was in Toronto, got that whole thing going and made the move to go get Boardman. They got that chip. Masai Ujiri and LeBron are very close. But then there's also non-basketball reasons as to why LeBron will go to Dallas. You see, Kyrie is not mentioned here in any of this. Kyrie is not a factor in LeBron going to Dallas. And I actually applaud that because Rich Paul could have done the shill thing. Rich Paul could have done the PC thing and put Kyrie here just as a make good, just to play nice, just to keep the narratives from bubbling up. But not putting Kyrie here makes it very clear that I've been saying it for a very long time, but LeBron and Kyrie were never close like that. So the fact that Dallas, the key factors in LeBron considering Dallas is more of Masai Ujiri, more so about oil, more so about playing golf, more than it is hooping with Kyrie again, extremely telling, okay? Now we go down to Boston. Boston is considered a possibility. Again, outside looking in. So we have all the teams here that are the core, and then we have Tatum and Brad Stevens. So LeBron and the boy genius. Fresh off trading Jaylen Brown, the Celtics are still a possibility. Why would LeBron ever actually consider going to Boston? What's the advantage there? Now, I know there's some ownership, some of that private equity stuff is kind of there. And we know LeBron is trying to get himself in position to potentially own an NBA franchise one day. So maybe he's playing that game. But if he's going to play that game, he needs to spin the block and remember what happened to Michael Jordan when he tried to play these ownership games. Let me do a solid for an owner, and when it's my time, we'll spin the block and he'll bless me. It didn't go that way for Michael Jordan. If LeBron is trying to play the private equity hedge game by getting tight with the ownership group, the private equity fund that owns the Boston Celtics, if he's trying to play that game, that's a dicey proposition. Extremely dicey. I would not do it if I was LeBron, but the fact that the Celtics are still here, this isn't for basketball reasons. LeBron can't assume if he's actually trying to go on his way out and get a championship, because remember, Rich Paul told us LeBron wants to be in a place where he is completely happy. He is in search of happiness. What about hooping with Tatum, with no Jaylen Brown, and not much else if we're going to keep it a buck? Derek White, Peyton Pritchard. You're telling me Brown wants to go hoop his last remnants of his basketball life with Peyton Pritchard? Is that what y'all trying to sell to me? Is that what Rich Paul is expecting us to buy? Because that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So Brad Stevens and Jason Tatum being here, to me, reeks of LeBron's doing business. Just like the Dallas play, it's clear. It's about oil and golf and Masai Ujiri. And the only reason why he would go to Golden State is to hoop with Steph and Drake, because those are his mans in them. I think the same thing. Even though it says Brad and Tatum here, I think this is about private equity. Now, over here, you see what happens when we bring up Darius Garland. Well, first, let's go to Spurs. Spurs here are underlined, right? This is very intriguing. We just talked about how throughout the whole NBA Finals, the Spurs needed someone to calm them down. The Spurs needed someone that could play point guard, that knows how to get everybody involved. If we were to have put, it doesn't have to be specifically LeBron James, but someone with certainly his acumen, his experience, with his playing ability, that was so sorely missed with what the Spurs showed us in that 5-game series with the Knicks. They needed someone that has some common sense. They needed someone that has a feel for pace of play and tempo. Are the San Antonio Spurs a LeBron James away from winning a Larry O'B? And we always have to put into context, this is 40-plus-year-old LeBron James, prime LeBron James. Every team was a LeBron James away from winning a championship in his prime. We're talking about right now. Who is a 40-plus-year-old LeBron James away from winning a championship? That's what all these teams are trying to figure out. All these teams are trying to navigate, are we a 40-plus-year-old LeBron James away from capturing a title? I think the Spurs, even though where would Bron play? Who goes to that bench? Champagny, who they just re-upped? I think he would know he has to take that back seat. So now you're rolling out De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Harper probably still has to come off the bench now. Although you could probably swing it. All right, so you go De'Aaron Fox, Vassell. You could go 3 guards. You could run Castle out there to run with Bron and De'Aaron Fox. And that way, Dylan Harper could run with the bench mob. He could be the lead guy for the bench mob. Now, as long as the coach clarifies that going into the season, which it was unearthed after the finals that, hey man, they really played around with Dylan Harper's role throughout the season. As long as they're clear, you're running with the 6. You're going to be 6 man of the year. Because you're going to come off the bench and go crazy, and you're going to run with the bench mob. But if the starting lineup is De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Vassell, LeBron, and Wemby, that's extremely formidable in the West. That's extremely formidable in the West. And then you got to see Knicks tape here. Knicks tape here, and Rich Paul said that if the Knicks didn't win the championship, LeBron was going to be a Knick. I severely doubt that. Only from the standpoint, and look, there's obvious mob ties here. There's clear mob ties between LeBron, World Wide West, Steve Stout, Leon Rose was his agent back in the day. Like, there's obvious mob ties to LeBron and the Knicks, right? But that's always been the case. So what am I to believe that a 40-plus-year-old LeBron James will actually entertain the Knicks when a 20-something-year-old LeBron James, when a 30-something-year-old LeBron James always leveraged the Knicks for more bread? He would take the meetings, he would do all the stuff, but it was never a real possibility. Now, over the years, a lot of stuff has been unearthed in terms of what LeBron and those meetings with the Knicks actually were. Promo videos from Wu-Tang Clan, all that type of stuff. But in regards to the actuality of LeBron becoming a Knick, it was always a long shot. So if the Knicks did not win a Larry O.B., I'm supposed to believe that LeBron was going to spin the block and end his career as a Knick? Wouldn't it make more sense now for LeBron to go be a Knick? Or was that just going to be a legacy play because he wants to be the guy that brought the Knicks their first championship in now what would have been 54 years? Jalen Brunson already beat you to that. So that's why the Knicks are not going to be, because, again, LeBron is about the legacy play. Never forget that LeBron is all about the legacy play. He brought Cleveland their only championship. That's huge. Hometown kid, Akron, all that stuff. He brings a chip to the land. Legacy play. He goes down to Miami. Miami was always close but never good enough. Then D-Wade comes and gets that chip early against the Mavs, but a lot of people put an asterisk on that chip because of the fouls. So that chip, even though it's respected, it's not held in high regard, right? Now we got the Heatles. Bron, Wade, Bosh, the whole deal. That is part of the legacy. That's a legacy play. The first super team, even though we know it's not, of the modern era, even though it's not, the victor gets to tell the story. The history books are written by the victors, and LeBron and his team were the victors, so they get the right. Nick Van Exel's a great Laker. He's not remembered by anyone outside of Lakerland because he didn't win a championship. Eddie Jones was a great Laker. The late Eldon Campbell was a great Laker. No one remembers outside of Lakerland, unless you're a real hooper's hooper. No one remembers because they didn't win a chip. So LeBron goes to LA, he gets a chip, cements that legacy. So he's part of the Laker pantheon. He is the part of the Heatles and the super team. And he brought the only championship to the land. It would have been a fantastic bookend to be able to go to the Mecca, to come to New York, and cure Knicks fans' dreams. No, excuse me, cure their nightmares of not being able to get a Larry O.B. Having Guys like LeBron be in their way, having guys like Jordan be in their way, and to now get one of those guys and that guy takes you over the top. The Jalen Brunson story is amazing from many storylines and plot lines. Redemption, all underdog story, all that stuff is there in the Jalen Brunson story. Could you imagine if that story doesn't happen and LeBron comes to the Mecca and on his last legs, the last remnants of his career, he gets a Larry O.B. with the Knicks? As great as a Jalen Brunson story is, can you imagine the magnitude of LeBron being able to come into the Mecca and win a Larry O.B.? Now, that's been taken away, and I think that's why the Knicks thing is not in play. That's why they're on the outside looking in, because LeBron is all about chasing legacy, chasing that story. How does the LeBron James arc end? It began with, all the hype. We are witnesses. He's the chosen one. All of that. It began with the hype train, and he lived up to it. Now, how do you hit the dismount on the way out? How do you close out a story? How do you close out the arc of what some think is the greatest basketball player of all time? How do you close it out? Jordan had a storybook ending, but he couldn't give it up because he was chasing legacy play. He was chasing an ownership play. How does LeBron end his arc? So after what you see here, what is the best case scenario for LeBron? Is it Philly? Is it Miami? Is it Minnesota? Is it Denver? Is it Cleveland? Or is it one of these peripherals? Is it one of these teams on the outside looking in that you feel is the better scenario for LeBron James? Let me know. So as you see here in the summary, the Warriors, Mavs, Celtics, Spurs, Knicks are secondary, right? Mavs mostly listed for non-basketball reasons. We talked about that. Cavs assistant GM Brandon Weems is a big X factor for Cleveland. He is, quote, basically LeBron's brother. Now, the negatives when it comes to Cleveland is Darius Garland, and you see that negative here. No Darius Garland listed as a negative for the Cavs. LeBron loves Garland like he loves Maxey. Can you imagine not being able to secure LeBron James because you no longer have Darius Garland? So Cleveland has a lot of things stacked with them. They have a good team. Spider, the Beard, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, but they don't have Darius Garland, so that might stop you from having the storybook ending of LeBron coming back to the land for the third time and maybe getting one more Larry O.B. for the land on the way out. But you have Weems, who is his man's. These are the corporate games. These are, when you're in this type of position, this is a leverage play. This is all about looking at things and having the power. We talk a lot about the player empowerment era that we're currently in. And LeBron and KD have kind of ushered this in. Player empowerment has always been there, right? But it's always been for the top of the top. It's kind of trickled down, thanks to the CBA and things like that, to only max players. Back in the day, you only had maybe 4 or 5 guys who really had player empowerment. When you talk about the 80s and the 90s, maybe about 4 or 5 guys per era had actual player empowerment. Now, any dude with a max contract has some sort of empowerment behind it because the money is so much bigger. And with the CBA, the salary cap is structured in such a way that when you have 2 max players, Boston, you have to pick one. And the one that you like, the one that you feel is the most empowered to make you better is the one that you're going to stick with, so then you jettison the Jaylen Brown. Each team has a max player. That means you got 30-something guys that have player empowerment. That was not always the case. So what do you do if you are LeBron? You're looking at this from the perspective of, okay, I can pick and choose where I want. And I see the chat going. We're going to get to that in a second. We got Philly here that has, I think, the best starting five of the ones that are in the core. Of the ones that are in the core, I think the Spurs are still a sleeper here. I could argue the Spurs could be right there, especially with the youth that we saw. That youth was good enough to go through OKC and lead the Knicks in every single game and lead the Knicks in every game by double digits. If they had a LeBron, even a 40-plus-year-old LeBron, they win that championship. But if we're looking at from the core, who Rich Paul has designated as the core options for LeBron, Philadelphia seems to be the most optimal. Miami seems the most sexy because you're pairing Bam Adebayo, who just fresh off dropping 80+. You're bringing in a back-to-back MVP and NBA champion in Giannis Antetokounmpo. You're bringing in A. Wiggins, who you could argue was the finals MVP on that last chip with the Warriors in them. And then Davion Mitchell is a solid player. He's clearly the weakest of this potential five with LeBron. But that's a sexy thing he made up with Pat Riley, allegedly. Storybook ending and closing the arc by going back to one of your former stops and making good. Miami did not like the taste in their mouth when LeBron left. They felt jettisoned by LeBron. They felt the cold shoulder about LeBron when it was clear he was not returning. And that organization and that fan base, and especially that media base, always got at LeBron because they were mad. They were mad. They were a bad ex. It was a bad breakup. Now when you're looking at making a storybook ending, closing the loop, is it going back to South Beach and pairing up with Giannis, pairing up with Bam? Is taking the minimum or close enough to the minimum worth it to go hoop in South Beach? Then you gotta look at Ant. Ant obviously is a clutch sport, so him and Rich Paul is like this, him and Bron is like this, so there's that obvious connection. But now you're talking about LaMelo. Who gets the ball? LaMelo's very ball dominant. Now, Jaden McDaniels is a bigger three, but a small four. Now, if LeBron's with Minnesota, LeBron is able to play the four. Jaden McDaniels could go to what I think is a more natural position for him in the three, and you still have Ant and LaMelo in the backcourt. That, to me, is it's the easiest lineup for LeBron to fit into. So I think the Sixers is the best lineup outside the Spurs, because the Spurs on the outside looking in according to Rich Paul. The Sixers are the best lineup LeBron could fit into. I think the easiest lineup for LeBron to fit into is the one in Minnesota because everyone is clearly defined. Everyone moves into their natural position. Ant is a natural two. That's what he is. LaMelo is a point. He's a point that also likes his shot, so you got to figure that out. But he is a willing facilitator. Jaden McDaniels is not a four. So you have LeBron play the four. Now McDaniels goes to a natural spot at the three. And then you still got Rudy Gobert anchoring at the five. I think that's the easiest lineup for LeBron to fit into. The Denver one is the most intriguing from the standpoint of Nikola Jokic and LeBron playing together. How would that work? Now, by no means am I saying it won't work. I just want to see what that would look like because Jokic is another guy that likes to have the ball in his hands, likes to orchestrate and facilitate. He's the best passing big man of all time. How do you now play with a guy that's 6'9" and has similar abilities and vision, court vision to you? It's a great problem to have. And Jamal Murray's no slouch at facilitating as well. So you have three guys potentially in Bron, Murray, and Jokic who can all facilitate. The ball movement would be amazing if you could get Jokic and LeBron to be at the top. And then you have Murray, Johnson, and Aaron Gordon just running around. Screens, pin downs, flares, just setting all types of ball movement and player movement. The spread offense could be really in play. So maybe the most fun lineup is LeBron in Denver. For basketball, pure basketball reasons, the most fun is LeBron in Denver. Cleveland, I think, is the team that needs LeBron the most. So the most neediest lineup is Cleveland. Because Spider Mitchell and the beard, we saw it. It looks good in the regular season. It could even get you through the first round, but we have no faith in them advancing past that. Putting LeBron in this lineup now gives me the confidence that they can at least get to the conference finals and be a legitimate threat if they were to get to the conference finals and not just be a walkthrough. Like, the path that was carved out in the East was extremely weak this past season. Knicks got their championship. I'm not taking any credit away. However, we also need to examine the teams that were in the way of anybody in the East. All those teams were flawed. All those teams had glaring weaknesses. The glaring weakness for Cleveland is that they have nobody, they don't have anybody that anyone is scared of in a clutch. As good as Spider is, as good as the beard is, no one is scared of them in the clutch. And even though LeBron has had his moments, mostly early in his career, where guys like Skip Bayless made millions of dollars over calling him not clutch, LeBron is clutch. LeBron is a guy that you can count on to make the right basketball play. It may not work, but he's going to make the right basketball play. So Cleveland, to me, is the most neediest team. They're in the team in the most need of LeBron. The Sixers don't need LeBron. But if they get him, that takes them through the roof. They have to be the favorite in the East, even with the Knicks coming back with more or less the same roster, sans MAGA Mitch Rob. LeBron in Miami will be a great story, but I still think Giannis and Bam, just off that, and filling in with a bunch of other guys, your Chris Middletons, maybe even your Bradley Beals of the world, that's enough for me to still put them as a top 4 team in the East. Now you go over to the West, outside of Cleveland, of this core group, I think that the Timberwolves are probably the second most neediest team that needs LeBron. I think LeBron fitting into this lineup fits almost too good for them not to do it. Like, it works so much that it would be really a big, huge oversight if they didn't do it. They have to do it. You got Ant in play. So Ant and Rich Paul, we know what that is. Like, that to me, if I am the brain trust, if I am Alex Rodriguez and the rest of that Timberwolves brain trust, you have to go all out to get LeBron because it's the most seamless fit to where he slides in at the 4 and you put Jaden McDaniels back the way he belongs at the 3. And then you got LaMelo and Ant in your backcourt like that. That to me is the most seamless. The Sixers getting him would be an embarrassment of riches. The Heat getting him, it's cool, but I don't know how this works from a basketball perspective. Again, everything hems on are the Miami Heat finally unleashing point forward Bam Adebayo. Are we getting point Bam? If we're not getting point Bam, and Bron is going to be running point or sharing point with Devion Mitchell, I don't know. If Bam is chilling in the paint with Giannis just trying to crash boards, I don't like that fit. Now, if Bam is at the top of the key, like a Jokic, like a habitual nut-hitter Draymond Green, now that's a different story. So if they're unlocking Bam and LeBron is fitting into that, I'm cool with it. Denver is the most intriguing because I don't know what that looks like from a basketball perspective, but I still want to see it. So you got to let me know. Hit the chat. Not enough of a super team without Garland for LeBron's. I mean, look, that's the whole point, right? He has the power to dictate that. He has the power to sit across from his mans and them in Weems and tell him, yo, dogs, I will come here, but I really like Darius Garland. I like Darius Garland like I like Tyrese Maxey. So if I had the choice of hooping with the dudes that I really want to hoop with like a Maxey, and that's why that asterisk is here for a reason. That asterisk is here for a reason. Like, that matters. Again, never before have we been brought inside this type of breakdown. And assuming this is all above board, this could all be for content. Rich Paul's learning this, as I spoke about earlier. But assuming this is even 70% accurate, him putting that asterisk means a lot. And him putting this minus means a lot. So however you want to go about it, Weems is a plus, because that's his man's, but no Garland, negative for Cleveland. Steph in the chat was good. The speed Maxey and Edgecombe play with may clash with Bron's style of play now. Interesting. Let's see if we can break that down. So, yes, that could be a thing, right? Or let's spin that the other way. We know how Kevin Love is with the outlet passes, right? Where he crashed the boards, and his first turn is to look and see who's available to start early offense, to start the transition, to start that early offense, right? What if Bron, in this flow, because obviously Jaylen Brown can get up and down as well. Imagine Bron playing the 4. He crashes the boards with Embiid, and he turns, and Maxey, Edgecombe, and Brown are all leaking out. So while, yes, to your point, Steph, I'm not disagreeing. I'm taking that and I'm saying, okay, word, but what if we flip that? What if we take that yes, Bron at this point in his career might be more of a half-court offense guy in terms of possession by possession, but if we now put him in a position where all he's got to do is crash boards and look who's leaking out, which channels into what he naturally is. He is naturally supposed to be Magic Johnson. He is supposed to be the evolution of Magic Johnson, but because of his athletic ability, he's been pushed to be more chasing Jordan. LeBron at his core is more Magic Johnson than he is Michael Jordan, more than he is Kobe Bryant. He's more Magic. If we can, on the way out, unlock Magic LeBron, or LeBron's interpretation of Magic Johnson, and he's got Maxey and Edgecombe leaking out, and also JB. And then, oh, by the way, I still got that 7'2" Cameroonian. Like, that to me, I like that. If I'm Bron and I could do that, I'm hooping with someone I want to hoop with in Maxey. I had my issues with Jaylen Brown. He was talking shit about Bronny, but we got over that. I'm trying to get a Larry O'B. You're trying to, shove it up the Celtics' ass. We could both agree to disagree. We could still hoop together. I got this youngin' in Edgecombe who I can help groom. I can help the process in Embiid be cemented and help Embiid finally reach that apex of what he's been promising as the process. There's a lot of things that work well for Philly here. So while, yes, I do see what you're saying in regards to Maxey and Edgecombe like to get up and down, that can be impactful in a negative way because of how LeBron is right now. I'm still going with, well, LeBron should be smart enough to understand that piece and be like, all right, well, I'm going to be Kevin Love. I'm going to get these boards, I'm going to turn, I'm going to look, and I'm going to play. He used to play football, right? I'm going to try to be the quarterback. Get that rock off the glass, and I'm looking deep. I'm going to get it to Maxey, I'm going to get it to VJ, and we're going to get a lot of early, easy buckets. How does someone LeBron's age conserve energy? By letting them youngins keep running up and down. I'm going to get these boards, and I'm going to give you the ball, and y'all go get a bucket. I'll be right back here conserving energy, ready to lock in and play defense and crash boards again. At least that's how I would spin it. I would spin it in that way. So that, to me, is where we stand here with LeBron. And then Rich Paul throwing the nugget. Every team has reached out outside of one or two. Who do you think has not reached out? Do you think the Spurs? I think the Spurs and probably the Celtics, if I had to guess. But just because the teams have not reached out, that does not mean that ownership, players, and peripheral people have not reached out. See, that is the trick bag that people in the media, which Rich Paul is one of them now because he's a podcaster, like to put out there. They tell you the truth, but the truth is hidden so deep between the lines that you need to extract from it and try to decipher the code. Paul says every team has reached out outside of one or two. And let's assume that those two are the Spurs and the Celtics. That does not mean that players from the Spurs and the Celtics or representatives of the Spurs or the Celtics have not been in contact with Rich Paul through back channels, through, private group chats, all that type of stuff. All that shit really does happen, bro. All that shit really does happen. So as much as this went viral, right? The whole Rich Paul at a whiteboard thing went viral because this is a unique way to break something down. This is analytical. This is metrics. This is data. This is taking a lot of time to sit down and break it down piece by piece, brick by brick. And never before have we seen, again, I think it went viral because we haven't seen this from someone who clearly is inside like Rich Paul. Can you imagine David Falk, Michael Jordan's agent, sitting down at a whiteboard when Jordan could have left the Bulls, which he could have left many times and actually thought about it a few times. And the Knicks were one of that mix even back then. Can you imagine a scenario where David Falk is sitting down at a whiteboard and walking through all the options Michael Jordan has and the one that he's actually considering and giving you some of the reasons, not all. Like Rich Paul ain't giving you all the tea, but he's giving you enough tea that he knows that he can float out there and it doesn't come back to hurt him. So he's giving you releasable tea and putting it out there for the world to take and to consume. So as much as I am, look, I've been in sports media a long time and I have not been a fan of what new media, as Draymond Green has liked to coin it, new media has done. This is what I want from new media. Because this isn't locker room stories. This isn't, I'm showing my biases. This is the actual inside information that we do not get. No journalist, no insider. Shams could not have done a whiteboard like this. Shams can only mention the teams and maybe some of the contributing factors, but Shams is not going to be able to sit down and bust it down like this on ESPN. He would not. He could not. But Rich Paul, again, player empowerment, and in proxy because of that, agent empowerment, so much so that arguably the leading agent in the basketball space has a podcast. And that's not considered a conflict of interest, be that as it may. This is what we're looking for. When the whole notion of new media and athletes are coming in and taking over this space, they're going to do it their way, and they're tired of old school media, which is predominantly old white male media. We're going to do it differently because we're black, we're different, we're young, we got different energy, different tech, different access. Word, I'm here for all of it. And then they continuously just do things that the old white media did, just with their spin on it, which wasn't that different. How they went about it, they showed the same biases. Reporters are biased to the players who they liked, players that gave them access, players that would sit down and be nice to them and give them, minutes or hours of their time so that they could do their stories. Athletes are doing the same thing. They're giving inside information. They're giving tea. They're giving tea to the insiders that they like. And the agents are doing the same thing. The agents are leaking information through the media members that they like. So you're not doing anything different. You're doing the same thing that you were mad that the media was doing, just with your coat of paint on top of it. The primer is still there. You're just putting a fresh coat over it. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's the same thing. So now with new media, if this is what new media is going to look like, where an agent is going to sit down and bust it down and break it down and tell us, this is what me and my most important client are walking through and thinking through and talking through in free agency. This is new media. This is what it is. Not Draymond hosting a podcast in his hotel room after a game. That's not new media. This is new media. This is what I want to see. This is the access. This is the information. So again, the core group, Sixers, Heat, Wolves, Nuggets, and the Cavaliers. Outside looking in, Warriors, Mavs, Celtics, Spurs, Knicks tape. Where the hell will LeBron James end up? Y'all let me know. So as we get, deeper and deeper into this thing, let's move into, and, the topic of LeBron is not closed. If you still want to talk about that, chat about that, no problem. If you want to hit that like button, tapping in on the chat, and you're digging what's going on the stream, let the algorithm know by hitting the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. This is what I do here. At least once a week, I pull up and do a live stream, just talk about whatever's going on in sports and sports media. I go by the name of D. Sam D. I'm almost a 20-plus year veteran in sports media. Within that industry, I've made a lot of friends, made a lot of connections. I try to bring some of the information that I know and try to cut through the narratives and the biases and bring that to y'all here. So if you like that type of content, go ahead and subscribe. If not, and you're just checking out the stream, the least you could do is just hit the like button to let the algorithm know that you think this is a pretty dope stream. So let's get to Ja. So Ja Morant is in a position to where he is now a Portland Trailblazer. And this trade, for the like of me, I could not figure out what the hell this trade is, right? I could not figure out why the hell is Ja in Portland. And it really just came to be one thing. Because when you look at what, and just come on the screen, if you want to look at what Ja Morant is as a basketball player right now, he only played 20 games this past season. So it's not like Portland can spin it where we believe in Ja. We saw him bounce back from all the injuries, from all the off-the-court stuff. We've seen him bounce back and still be him again. No, you didn't see that. He only played 20 games last year. And he hasn't played, let me see if I can find the stat. He hasn't played upwards of, I think it was 60 games since like 2023. Let me look up that stat real quick. No, 50 games. Ja Morant has not played 50 games since the 2022-2023 season. We're about to hit 2027, bro. We are halfway to 2027. Ja has not played 50 games in about 4 or 5 years. So it can't be for basketball reasons. So why would Portland trade for Ja Morant? It was widely reported that the league did not want Ja Morant, that teams were telling the Grizzlies, you're going to have to package some picks for us to take Ja in a trade. We don't think that highly of Ja. Now, whether this is some Jaylen Brown smokescreen, vague racism, I don't know. But in regards from a basketball perspective, this does not make sense for Portland. You have Dame on his own farewell tour. You have Drew Holiday still on this roster, even though we know he's not going to be there. We know he's not going to be there. And then you have Scoot. You have Scoot Henderson, who went number 2 behind Big Vic, behind Wemby, and he's had his own ups and downs, but last year was the best year of Scoot Henderson's career. He at times looked like a point guard. He at times looked like a guy that was worthy of being taken number 2 overall. He also at times looked like a guy that, yeah, I see why y'all sent him down to the developmental league. But why would you bring in another guy who can play not only Dame's position, but could even play Scoot's position? From a basketball perspective, you have 3 point guards. That doesn't make basketball sense. And I could throw in Drew and say 4, but we know Drew ain't going to be there. You got 3 point guards? That's not going to make a lot of sense. So why is Ja in Portland? He's in Portland because Nike is in Oregon. And right now, Ja Morant is extremely important to the continued development of what Nike is trying to do with their basketball shoes. It really just comes down to, for financial reasons, Nike needs to keep Ja Morant close. It's gotten to that point in his career. Where is Ja even 30? I don't even think Ja is 30. They already need to have a babysitter around Ja Morant. Now, we could have understood that early in his career because he was so young coming out of college. And then obviously with some of the trouble that he got into in Memphis, we can understand why they would want someone on standby just to make sure Ja ain't doing no crazy shit. But now we're getting to the point where the only place that is willing to take in Ja Morant, who was looking like a perennial MVP candidate at one point in his career, who was looking like a face of the franchise, potentially even face of the league at one point, we're now just sending him off to Portland so they could just keep an eye on him because the shoes are doing buku numbers. It's gotten to this point in his career because you can't convince me this is about basketball. You can't convince me I envision a world where Dame and Ja are cooking up. You can't tell me you envision a world where Scoot and Ja are cooking up in the same backcourt at the same damn time. You can't convince me of that. So it's clearly not about basketball. It is about these shoes and how important these shoes are to not just Beaverton, Oregon, where the Nike headquarters are at, but more importantly, the stock price. The Nike stock price has been doing a nosedive for a minute now. And the only thing keeping that thing afloat from nosediving even harder is all the retro J's y'all keep buying. And these Ja 3s. These Ja 3s. And the CEO is more or less admitting as such. Ja Morant's doing a great job for us from a basketball perspective. We just launched his Ja 3 and had really good sell-throughs there. Not just in the United States, but around the world. In China, he was there. Pull through Sabrina in Asia. So Ja is the gateway drug for Nike to keep spreading out and creating a worldwide dominance, try to regain some of that ground they lost from Adidas. Ja Morant is too important to Nike. So the reason why Ja Morant is in Portland is because Nike is based out of Oregon. And they need to keep close ties on Ja Morant. Now, Portland as an organization moves very differently. All the stuff we saw with Ja's pops, that's not going to fly in Portland. It's not. It's a different organization. It's a different ownership group now, especially all that fly shit, all that front row. I'm cosplaying as Usher. I'm beefing and joking with LeBron. All that stuff is not going to fly in Portland. So the Morants in general are going to have to get in line. They will not have the carte blanche. They will not have the free reign that they had in Memphis. It's going to be extremely different with Portland. So it's very interesting to have the CEO of a sneaker company that everyone knows has ties throughout the league, that has influence throughout the league. Basketball is the main thing that has built Nike into what it is today. But with LeBron on the way out, and LeBron sneakers don't have the cachet like Jordans. Kobe sneakers have the cachet, but there's a ceiling there. KD sneakers are really good, but we're hitting a point where it's just the sneakers aren't hitting culturally like they used to. The Jordan brand has siphoned some players that if it would have hit, they could have really helped, but it's under the Jordan brand, so it's a little different. The Luka kicks, people ain't wearing those. Not like that. The Zion shit came and went, it flopped, nobody wearing those. So Nike doesn't have too many guys. Like they're trying it with Wemby, but again, a guy that's a 7'4", 7'5" on a good day, Frenchman, I don't know how many youngins in the streets gonna be rocking some Wembys. But you have enough people that are in the streets rocking the Jaws. And not just in these streets, in the worldwide streets, that Ja Morant is that important to Nike that they put the bug, this is all alleged, put the bug in Portland's ear, go get him. We need him close. We can't have him wilding out. We can't have another repeat of the Memphis shit. We can't have him having kids coming in his backyard and having him brandish guns because he's losing one-on-ones with the kids or team games with the kids. Like, we can't have any of that. No more. Those days are done. He got away with it because Memphis was up. Memphis was winning. Memphis was in position to go get Larry O'Bees potentially if everything would have worked out. But no, all that's a wrap. All those guys have been jettisoned individually. I bet that Memphis era is now closed. Now we just need you to come here and keep selling these shoes. We're going to keep putting you in position to keep selling these sneakers. So whatever it takes, Portland, Nike, they're going to try to create an atmosphere where Ja's going to play. And Ja's going to play well because there's no pressure. There's absolutely no pressure in Portland. No one's expecting the Blazers to win anything. Memphis, you were the face of the franchise, potentially future face of the league. There was pressure that was coming along with that. He's going to face none of that in Portland. No one's thinking he's the future of the franchise because now they have their returning hero, Dame, back home. And they can always spin, well, Scoot's the future. So Ja can come in and just do whatever Ja wants to a certain level, to a certain degree. Because Dame gonna get his shots. Dame ain't giving up no shots for no Ja Morant. And Scoot is still trying to show and prove that he's the future. So he's not going to bow down to no Ja. Ja's going to have to come in and earn it. Ja's going to have to come in and act right. And we haven't seen too much act right from Ja Morant. Y'all let me know. Is Ja Morant going to be able to pull this off? Is Ja Morant going to be able to rehab not just his game? Because his game has kind of, he's turned into a great value Derrick Rose. He's turned into a bootleg Derrick Rose. We've seen the explosiveness. We've seen the ability to finish at the rim. We've seen the ability to finish through contact. We've seen the fearlessness, the cockiness, the braggadociousness. We've seen all that. But we've also seen a jumper that never improved. We've seen a lack of basketball IQ at times. And we have definitely seen an attitude that has hurt him on and off the court. Can he rehab all of that by just chilling in Rip City, chilling in PDX, and making trips to Beaverton, getting PEs, Ja 3s, and Ja 4s? Like, is that what it's come to? Have we reached that point with Ja where it's really just, yo, dogs, just stay upright, stay healthy enough. You haven't played 50 games in about 3, 4, 5 years. You only played 20 games last year. When you do play, it looks cool, but it's not winning basketball. Dog, just go there to Portland and chill. Don't fuck it up. Don't fuck the money up. Hopefully you're like Jordan and you got royalties on the back end for these Jaws. As long as you play and stay healthy, these Jaws going to keep flying. Don't mess your bread up. Don't mess the bread that your dad is trying to siphon off of. Don't mess any of that up, allegedly. Don't mess any of that up. Play the game. You don't even have to play that well. Just stay healthy. Stay healthy. Get your 20. Have a couple of exciting plays throughout the year to keep your name up, keep the highlights coming in. But The winning basketball thing, the face of the league thing, those are all gone. The face of a franchise thing, that's all gone. We hit the chat. Steph Jaws, Memphis stint truly shows how short windows are in the NBA, professional sports, period. Now, that's a fact. I mean, look, we had the discussions of Ja and Zion. Those two are going to be attached at the hip. We're going to be tracking their careers and figuring out which team did the Pelicans trick it off by not taking Ja. I said off rip, and this is documented here on this YouTube channel. I said I would have took Ja number one. I was never a believer in the whole Zion is the face of everything. I was never a believer. But now it's not even, both are afterthoughts. When have we seen a number one and number two pick? And we can make this any sport. We can keep it to basketball. We can make this any sport to keep it a buck with you. When have we seen a number one and number two pick that were held in high regard and at times showed us why they were taking number one and number two, and in under a decade, they're both afterthoughts? I challenge you, because this is unprecedented to have Zion, who was certainly a nationwide phenomenon, but he was starting to trickle across the world. And then Ja, just his story, the Murray State thing, all of it was happening. And then he came to the league and showed and proved and was able to get a team of the Grizzlies that was young and up and coming, and a team that looked like they're going to be a problem in the West. What he said, the West is ours, we got next or whatever. He was talking crazy shit. He thought he had figured it out until he didn't. When have we seen a number one and number two pick have that type of trajectory and then that type of fall off? You let me know. But Portland, Ja Morant has nothing to do with basketball and everything about selling more shoes. All right, let's see what else we got. Again, I go by the name of DCMD. If you have not liked the stream already, go ahead and hit that like button. Let YouTube know to get tapping in on the stream and you're digging what you're seeing here. Trying to give you some authentic commentary, some real commentary. No shill talk here, no biases here, no allegiances or alliances here. Just straight, pure thoughts that are in my head based off what I know within the industry, and what I know with conversations I've had with people within the industry. So, the last topic before we make a move is the Michael Strahan stuff. And some of you might be here today because you tapped in on the Michael Strahan video that I did. And I was very critical of Michael Strahan. I was very critical of Michael Strahan's performance in the interview with CJ2K. And none of it, and I've been battling with people back and forth in the comments of that video, but none of it is about, I don't care about CJ2K. It's more about, I care so much about what happened to CJ2K that I don't want this to continuously happen to others like CJ2K. That point has gone over a lot of people's heads. They're only focused on, you're getting at Michael Strahan. You don't care about what's happening with Chris Johnson. That doesn't make any sense. I think this issue should be brought up and be pushed more to the forefront because I care about what happened with CJ2K. And because I don't think other players should have to endure what CJ2K is going through. And early awareness and early detection is a huge thing in any disease prevention. So, in case you don't know, Chris Johnson has been diagnosed with ALS. ALS is a debilitating disease, and he went on Good Morning America with Michael Strahan as the interviewer, and they talked a lot about the suddenness of his diagnosis, the suddenness of the impact of his diagnosis. He was diagnosed at 39, and then the debilitating state that he's in now, where he can no longer walk and he can no longer speak under his own power, just a year later. So within a year, he has lost tremendous amounts of motor skills. However, the conversation has evolved. The conversation has evolved because for me, again, as someone that looks at this from a different POV, I'm not just looking at it as a fan, just saying, oh man, that sucks for CJ. Yes, hard stop. It sucks for Chris Johnson. It sucks for his family and friends and loved ones, all of that. Hard stop. However, there is a growing trend to where football players are contracting ALS. And yes, ALS has a bit of randomness in it. There is no direct cause and effect of how you can get ALS. But unfortunately, the research and the science and the data that has been done is showing that football players, more so than others, are contracting this disease at a higher rate. And not only are they contracting it at a higher rate, they are dying from it at a higher rate, upwards of 4 times as likely to die from ALS as opposed to those who have not played a game of football. They took a sample size of about 15,000 former players, current and former players. And the research data that they got back was that enough players had died from contracting ALS that they have crunched the numbers that NFL players who have only played one game are 4 times as likely to die from ALS disease. And that to me is why Michael Strahan should have asked the question in the interview, hey, we are both former players. We both left our, blood, sweat, and tears, all the jargon, right? All the stuff that players always say. We both left it out there on the field. We both are living handsomely off the fact that we left it all out there on the field. This game gave us a lot. But it also took a lot from us. What have the doctors told you about football, the game that we love, the game that we both played, the game that we both play at a high level? What have the doctors told you about this sport potentially contributing to the condition that you're in today? That's it. One question. Doesn't have to be intricate, thought out. It's a simple question. And the amount of people that were in the comments trying to tell me that I was asking too much when I'm asking for one question to be asked is asinine. It is lunacy to have a player who was the fastest player in the league, one of the most dangerous players the league has ever seen, and by the age of 40, that player cannot speak nor walk. And we shouldn't ask if football did that to him? And I had people in the comments giving me anecdotes. Well, my grandma died. She ain't played football. She had ALS. She died from it. She ain't played football. What does that have to do with Chris Johnson? Again, if the research hadn't been done, you could get that point off. Unfortunately, the research has been done. This is by Harvard, UCLA. They've done the research. Football players who have played only one game of football are 4 times as likely to get ALS as opposed to you and I. Isn't that telling? Isn't that alarming? Isn't that a problem? Isn't that something that should be given a platform? And players are doing the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge in a show of solidarity for Chris Johnson. And I think that's cool. I also think that is a performative measure, because there's real conversation that should be had, because players are falling down and going boom. Players are dying. There's been numerous players over the last few years that have died from ALS. And yet, while everyone is running and trying to remix and bring back the Ice Bucket Challenge, they're not talking about how there could be more Chris Johnsons that are not diagnosed. But if all we are concerned about is dumping ice buckets on our heads, then that's what's going to happen. We're going to keep getting Chris Johnsons, where someone who's in the prime of their life all of a sudden can't speak or walk. If we're not pushing early diagnosis, if we're not pushing for awareness and getting tested, what are we talking about? Anyway, I just had to get that off. I just think it's a little bit a lunacy to absolve Michael Strahan, who is a former football player who's been thrusted into a media position and has an interview with a former football player, a contemporary of his, who no longer can speak or walk, who has to speak with his eyes through technology. and you're not going to ask that player if the sport you both played contributed to this, absolutely insane to me. But anyway, we'll let the chat. Y'all still talking Ja and Zion. Steph, Zion and Ja are about to be the same combos Jabari and Wiggs was in. Ooh, Jabari Parker and but see, at least A. Wiggins gave us something, right? Wiggins gave us something. And I think that Jabari Parker definitely is in that conversation. So I like that. I like that piece of it. But like A. Wiggins, let's look at A. Wiggins' career. We know Jabari did not have a good career through no fault of his own. Wasn't that the Evan Turner draft as well? Wasn't Evan Turner in that draft? Was that the big three in that draft? Andrew Wiggins is an NBA champion. Let's see what we can pull up at A. Wiggins. Yeah, he's had a 12-year career. Nah, I can't put Wiggs in there. Jabari, yes, I can't put Wiggs in there. And I don't think you're saying that, but just trying to have that convo. Let's see that draft. You talk about trying to do a draft do-over. Wiggins, Jabari Parker, Joel Embiid, Aaron Gordon. Marcus Smart being the 6th pick is nasty. Like, how do you redraft this? Embiid's the number 1 pick. Who do you put second in this draft? Do you go Aaron Gordon or do you go A. Wiggins? We're not missing anybody from the second round, are we? Let's see. Oh, Jokic. Sorry, Jokic is the number 1 pick. My bad. I forgot that was that year. So Jokic is your number 1 pick. Jokic is number 1. Embiid number 2. Between Wiggins and Aaron Gordon, who's number 3? You probably go Wiggins? Probably? Numbers-wise, if you see it here, numbers-wise, you probably go Wiggins. But Aaron Gordon's impact is deeper than numbers. Man, you have a draft with Wiggins, Jabari Parker, Joel Embiid, Aaron Gordon, guys that had notable college careers, and the best player in the entire draft wasn't taken until the second round, and not even high in the second round, the middle of the second round, who only went a few spots ahead of luminaries like Russ Smith and Thanasis Antetokounmpo. Do you understand how crazy this is? The fact that Nikola Jokic only went a handful of spots higher than J.R. Smith's brother and Giannis Antetokounmpo's brother, that to me should throw all analytics out the window. The greatest passing big man of all time was drafted only a handful of spots higher than J.R. Smith's brother and Giannis, the Nigerian freak, Antetokounmpo's brother. Like, this is a movie. Nikola Jokic, I'm sure they got a whole bunch of movies, and where is it from? Serbia? Where is he from? Yeah, Serbia. I'm sure Serbia has done so many docs on Jokic and his story, but when that American one drops, that's the one. Because you're telling me, we can even talk about Jeremy Grant low-key, and even Dinwiddie, like this second round ain't no slouch. If you do a starting 5 of the first round versus the starting 5 of the second round ain't no slouch. Jeremy Grant, Jokic, you put some Jordan Clarkson, some Dwight Powell, like you could get a good 5. You ain't getting much else than that 5, but you get a good starting 5. Jokic in the starting 5 makes the lineup solid, off rip. They can put in Dinwiddie, Jeremy Grant, Jordan Clarkson, and a Dwight Powell. I mean, you got something going there. But can you imagine? So again, I continue to ask. Number one, number two picks overall, and they're irrelevant in under a decade. Has there been anything to that level? Steph in the chat. Oh, that's the same one. Okay. So, I mean, we could go through some drafts real quick, but I think it's very, very telling. Very, very telling. Calling it Townsend, D'Lo. Nope. Let's go 17. Ben Simmons and Brandon Ingram. Boy, we almost got up with Ben Simmons, but then Young Reaper has had a good career. Let's get to 2017. Ooh, Markelle Fultz and Lonzo. Fultz and Lonzo going 1-2. Is that equivalent to Ja and Zion 1-2 in terms of irrelevancy and coulda, shoulda, woulda? That might be the closest so far. DeAndre Ayton and Marvin Bagley. They both are busts, but neither one of them showed us anything that made it look like they were worthy of the pick. Like Ja and Zion have individually showed us at times that they were worthy of where they were drafted. Ayton and Bagley were just both busts. 2019. There we got the Zion and Ja year. Since then, Ant and Weissman, no. 2021, Cade and Jalen Green, nope. 2022, Paolo and Chet, nope. Yeah, I think we're going to be hard-pressed to find a 1 and 2 in a draft where both guys are irrelevant, but showed us flashes, but are now irrelevant in under a decade than Zion and Ja. The biggest coulda, shoulda, woulda, what ifs in draft history. But if you joined us late, we broke down the infamous Rich Paul whiteboard. We talked about what LeBron is thinking of doing and the level of access we've been giving as a public in terms of what LeBron is thinking. Never before have we had a player the size and status of LeBron with a agent like Rich Paul go on a platform that Rich Paul owns, so LeBron also owns in part, and go on there and give a cohesive breakdown of all the options that LeBron has. Where we've broken down, I think, and y'all can let me know in the comments, the chat, replay gang, you can let me know in the comments if you're here live. If you haven't hit the like button, you should go ahead and do that. But also you can hit the chat. I think Philly is the best option for LeBron. I think Miami is the most unorthodox option for LeBron. I think Minnesota is the second most needed scenario. So they need LeBron out of the West. They're the most needy team in the West that needs LeBron. Again, these are the core. So Rich Paul put together the 4 players that would be playing with LeBron for each potential scenario. Philly here, Miami here, Minnesota here, Denver here, and Cleveland here. So with Minnesota, they need LeBron the most out of a team in the West. So of this bunch, they need LeBron the most. Denver, to me, is the most fun for basketball reasons. I want to see that, just purely for basketball reasons. I don't know if they can win a championship with LeBron. I don't know if the Nuggets are a 40-plus-year-old LeBron James away from winning a Larry O.B. But I do want to see Jokic and LeBron cook up on pick and rolls. I want to see that. I think the team that needs LeBron the most, no matter conference, East or West, is Cleveland. Cleveland needs LeBron the most. Cleveland is the most LeBron away for winning a Larry O.B. Cleveland is the most out of all these teams, peripheral or core. So you let me know. I think Philly's the best option. I think low-key Miami might be the worst because I don't see that. I don't see how it works in Miami. I get it from a storybook standpoint. I just don't see how it works. So Philly's the best. Miami might be the worst of the core. Minnesota needs him the most outside of Cleveland of these core teams. Denver's the most intriguing and the most fun for basketball reasons. And Cleveland, out of these 5 teams in the core, need LeBron the most. And then you have these teams on the outside looking in where you have Wardell and the habitual nut hitter Draymond Green. So the Warriors are in the mix, but they're on the outside looking in. Because again, remember that was a whole package thing of him and Anthony Davis, and the Wizards that come out and said that they're not moving Anthony Davis now. So that kind of hampers the ability of the Warriors to give what LeBron would want. Because LeBron's not pulling up to the Bay to just hoop with Steph and Draymond. Like, it will be a cool story. But again, LeBron and Rich Paul. So let's start with Rich Paul has told us LeBron wants to go somewhere where he can achieve complete happiness. Do you think playing with Wardell and Draymond Green is going to make LeBron achieve complete happiness? If winning is included in complete happiness, the answer is no. And that's why they were trying to push Anthony Davis to be part of that mix. Because now you can get your complete happiness because you're hooping with your boys in the habitual nut hitter and Wardell, but now you're hooping with AD, who was once your boy you want to Larry O.B. with in the bubble with. Now you can sell it for basketball reasons too. Dallas is on the outside looking in, but they're on this whiteboard because they have Masai Ujiri. Masai Ujiri used to be with the Raptors. He's now with the Mavericks. Dallas is on this whiteboard for non-basketball reasons. I think there is another team who is on this whiteboard for non-basketball reasons, and we'll get there in a second. But to recap, Dallas is on this whiteboard because of oil and golf and Masai Ujiri. So non-basketball reasons. You notice there is no Kyrie on this whiteboard for the Dallas Mavericks section. Make of that what you will. Boston is on this list with the boy genius Brad Stevens and Jason Tatum here. And I think this is the second team that is on this whiteboard for non-basketball reasons because there is no basketball reason you can sell me on why LeBron James would want to go be a Boston Celtic. Unless you're going to try to sell me on the storyline of he was trying to go through Boston and he couldn't. And we have the infamous or famous footage of him walking away at the end of his first Cleveland stint where they were throwing stuff and laughing at LeBron off the court as the Celtics had beat the Cavaliers again. If you're now trying to tell me the storybook ending is him walking away, potentially winning a championship in Boston, that story is horrible. That story's trash. So I can't run with that. So I think this is a hedge fund play because, again, LeBron wants to own a team. LeBron wants to own a team. LeBron owns teams in other sports, but his goal, he has said it, Rich Paul has echoed it, LeBron wants to own an NBA franchise. How do you put yourself in position to learn and to get knowledge and peep game? By going to a franchise that is currently owned by a private equity fund. Because that's the big money play here for all athletics is these private equity funds buying up teams left and right. So if that's the case, I think LeBron potentially would consider Boston purely so he could soak up game from the leaders of the private equity fund. It doesn't make basketball sense. LeBron and Tatum are nowhere near enough. You're trying to tell me you're going to go out there with a big three of Derek White, Jason Tatum, and LeBron James? That ain't winning shit. That's not going through the Knicks. That's not going through Philly. That might not even go through Miami. Maybe Cleveland. But that's not going through a lot of teams in the East or the teams that are taken seriously in the East. Then you have here the Spurs, which I think is a really slept-on piece here. And the storyline you could paint is you have the outgoing face of the league paired up with the incoming face of the league in Victor Wembanyama. You could paint that scenario. They had a taste of that briefly with the point fraud when the point fraud went down there and linked up with Wemby for 1 year. You know, the old guy and the young guy, all that stuff. They could run that back to an even better degree this time because LeBron is clearly a better player than the point fraud ever was or ever could be. You're putting now LeBron, who some would consider still the face of the league, and teaming him up for 1 year, maybe 2 years, with the current or the future face of the league in Victor Wembanyama. You could sell that storyline. Plus, I think the NBA Finals would have went very differently if the San Antonio Spurs had someone the caliber of a 40-plus-year-old LeBron James. We talked about it a lot here where the Spurs kept coming undone and no one could see it coming. LeBron would have saw it coming. When Mitch Johnson wasn't calling timeouts because he was just in a daze, watching his team trick away, double-digit lead after double-digit lead after double-digit lead, LeBron would have took control of not only that huddle, but that entire team and made sure they would take a timeout and calm everybody down. I mean, the Spurs went and had to hire a coach to be the assistant coach to kind of, who was it that they hired? Let me come off the screen for a second. Let me find out. Who did they just hire? The Spurs had to go get Mitch Johnson, essentially a caddy. Billy Donovan. All right, so the Spurs had to go out there and go get Billy Donovan to be the lead assistant coach under Mitch Johnson. So Mitch Johnson showed himself to be so incompetent in these past NBA Finals, where he watched his team continuously trick away double-digit leads, to where he watched his team go undone and he had no answer for it, that now they have to go and hire Billy Donovan just to be his lead assistant coach. So now Billy Donovan is going to have to be the one to call the timeout when the Spurs are tricking off double-digit leads. So the Spurs brain trust that is thought to be one of the most respected organizations in the world, they have realized the error of their ways because Mitch Johnson ain't it. But we can't fire him because that would be an admittance of a bigger error. So let's admit a small error and hire Billy Donovan, who'll be able to come in and kind of be the big bro. They're hiring Billy Donovan to be big bro for Mitch Johnson. He's not the head coach. He may be the head coach if Mitch Johnson keeps tricking off double-digit leads and they got to fire him. They got Billy Donovan, who has head coaching experience. But for all intents and purposes, Billy Donovan is going to be the big brother to Mitch Johnson. When Mitch Johnson is standing there in a daze as his team tricks off another lead, Billy Donovan can whisper in his ear, "You should probably take a timeout. You need to calm this team down. You should call," because Popovich can't do that from the luxury suite. Tim Duncan can't call that from the luxury suite. Manu only flies in every now and then. Monsieur Parker only flies in now and then. So that Spurs brain trust is all over the place. They're scattered. Mitch Johnson proved in this NBA Finals he needs someone by his side. He needs someone who is more experienced by his side. So now they got to go out there and hire Billy Donovan. If that's not an admittance of the mistake that Mitch Johnson maybe is not the guy, or certainly was not the guy last year because they had a chance to steal a championship and to pass that baton to Victor Wembanyama and finally wrestle it from the cold, dead hands of LeBron James. Now, all right, we couldn't win, so now LeBron might pull up and help them win and have the ultimate baton passing in terms of, we're going to win a championship together and I'm going to walk away and now the league is yours, Vic. Could be a thing. And then you see Knicks tape here at the end, and Knicks tape is here because allegedly, Rich Paul is saying that if the Knicks did not win the championship, LeBron was definitely going to be a Knick. And while that sounds great, and while Knicks fans, even though they're still in the glow of their first championship in 53 years, they have to feel some kind of way about missing out on LeBron James. Now, I'm sure they will obviously trade a chip for not having LeBron. They don't care about it to a certain degree. But from a LeBron perspective, it's all about storyline. It's all about legacy. He wants to tie a bow in his career. He wants to have the arc in his story that hits the dismount. You know, those gymnasts, when they go through all their routine could be fire from beginning to end. But when it gets to that very end, the last thing that the dismount, that can make or break the whole overview of your performance. So LeBron is at that point. He has had the arc from Mount St. Mary's, St. Vincent's, to the Cavs, to Miami, to back to the Cavs, to the Lakers. And he's won at all those stops. He has gotten all the records. He has gotten all the acclaim. He has gotten all the clout. But if he chooses wrong here and tricks off the dismount, if he doesn't stick the landing, it will impact the overview of his legacy. And he knows that. Rich Paul knows that. And if you have any common sense, you know that. So this is why having this whiteboard is so dope, because this really paints the picture. You can see legacy plays at all these stops. Golden State, legacy play. Me and Steph walk off together, or me and Dre walk off together with another chip. Dallas, that has nothing to do with basketball. But if we could somehow bring another chip to Dallas, it would be unbelievable. We talked about the Celtic play. I don't think it's a great one, but it's there if you want to believe that. The Knick one would have made sense. You've gone 54 years without Larry O.B. Here comes your savior. Here comes your king. You are all witnesses. Even at an advanced age, you're still witnesses. And he gets you a Larry O.B., your first one in 54 years. It was there. Spurs, I can paint the legacy. I can hand the baton to the future face of the league as we both team up and win a Larry O.B. together. Cleveland, I could go back to where it all started. I already got them one chip, but let's do it one more time and do it for the land. And then I could go right back to the crib in Akron, and that will put the bow on my career. I could go to Denver and have the most fun basketball season ever playing with a true alien in Nikola Jokic and get him his second championship, cement his legacy, and cement my own legacy by winning a championship in Denver. Because everywhere I've gone, I've won a championship. I could go to Minnesota and hand the keys to Ant. He's young, he's brash, he's outspoken. He's got the swag, he's got the aura. I can team up with him and LaMelo and cement their status. Get a Larry O.B. And as I'm walking away, I could tell Ant, it's your league. Make sure the Frenchman doesn't get it. I could go to Miami, put a bow. I could right the wrong that was me leaving the Heat high and dry. I could right that wrong. I made up with Pat Riley. I can go back to Miami and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Here's a championship on the way out. I could go to Philly and cement the process. Cement all those years of losing. Cement all those years of tanking. Cement all those years of failed lottery picks. And team up with the last remnants of the process and bring a championship to Philly, which is the whole reason why they were tanking in the first place. So there's a whole bunch of storylines as to where you could paint the picture as to where LeBron will go. You let me know in the chat which one of these stories makes the most sense. Two things. Which story makes the most sense, and which is the story you want to see the most? Let me know in the chat. Let's see if there's any NBA stuff breaking this morning. Ooh, this is interesting. According to Shams, Kawhi Leonard has hired a new agent to oversee extension talks with the Raptors. Quote, Leonard previously had Mitch Frankel and his uncle and business advisor Dennis Robertson handle all of his affairs. So, oh boy, let's talk about this. So there's a video on this channel I did. We talked about this on stream last week, but there's a video I did on here talking about why Kawhi is actually in Toronto. And part of that reason is because he's running from the smoke of he don't want to be in LA when all those sanctions come raining down on not just the Clippers, but on his people. And by people, I mean Uncle Dennis. And now apparently his ex-agent, Mitch Frankel. So Kawhi was sent back to Toronto not for basketball reasons. Just like I talked about how Ja Morant is in Portland and it has nothing to do with basketball. And how the Celtics trading Jaylen Brown had nothing to do with basketball. Same thing here. Kawhi Leonard was traded from the Clippers to the Raptors and it had nothing to do with basketball. It has everything to do with anyone associated with Kawhi and the Clippers and the collusion. All of you are about to catch it. So all of you need to separate and go your separate ways. So Kawhi has to leave the Clippers. They have to separate. Now that Kawhi is in the six and he's back in Toronto, now Kawhi and his management, Uncle Dennis, and even Mitch Frankel, his agent, now they got to separate because when the sanctions come down, when the punishment comes down, everybody's catching it. Everybody's catching it. So am I stunned or surprised that Shams is reporting that Kawhi is going to hire a new agent to oversee his new contract? No, because he will not be allowed to still have Uncle Dennis and Mitch Frankel represent him because they were complicit in the contract collusion, in the CBA circumventing contract that Kawhi had with the Clippers. So everyone associated with that deal has to separate. This is the next domino. The first domino was getting Kawhi up out of LA. Because the Clippers could not extend Kawhi because it would be like giving the league a middle finger would be the equivalent. So we can't do that, so we got to get rid of Kawhi. Because they would come down on us even harder if we were to extend Kawhi. So we got to get rid of Kawhi. We don't have no picks. So even if the league wanted to punish the Clippers right now, the Clippers did not have any picks prior to trading Kawhi. Now they can leverage those 3 first-round picks that they got from Toronto in exchange for Kawhi. So now when the league comes down and punishes them and forfeits their picks, don't be surprised if it's the vast majority of the picks that they just got for Kawhi. Okay? Now that Kawhi is in Toronto, y'all think it's going to stop there? No. Because Kawhi's team was just as complicit in this collusion as the Clippers. So they can't just come down on only the Clippers. They got to come down on Kawhi's team as well. Well, now that team is no longer Kawhi's team. So the only one who might actually skate in all this could be Kawhi. Uncle Dennis no longer has a job. Now, again, am I silly enough to actually believe Uncle Dennis will not be involved in his nephew's affairs? No. But on paper, he will no longer be representing Kawhi Leonard. And sometimes that's all the league needs, just the optics. Because the optics is what got them in this position. They had too much stuff on paperwork that was too easy to find by anyone who gave a damn. And unfortunately for Ballmer, the Clippers, Lawrence Frank, and Kawhi and them, Pablo Torre gave a fuck and went after the paperwork, and it was clear as day, allegedly. So this makes all the sense in the world. Kawhi is indeed running from the smoke. What else we got? I'm gonna hit the chat. Steph in the chat. Minnesota, bring a chip to the city, learn from former player, now owner, and pass the baton. I dig it. I think it makes sense. It makes sense. Pass the league over to Ant. He can learn how to do the player owner thing, like Alex Rodriguez is part owner of the Minnesota Timberwolves, so it makes sense there. It makes sense. I get it. I think Minnesota, from a basketball perspective, and even if Bron wants to do the whole thing of learning from the ownership POV, Steph makes a good point there. I think Minnesota makes the easiest sense. It's the easiest lineup for him to fit into and know what his role is. All right, let's see. Anything else? We might be good there. Summer league's going on. Nobody cares. Let's see. Do we want to do NBA Central one time just to see if there's anything substantial? NBA Central. Let's see. Is there anything worthwhile? So I guess Giannis was on a stream. This is propaganda you're about to see, but let's go there anyway, and I will put myself in the upper right so you can see it. Okay. Giannis on a stream. The person I like to watch a lot is LeBron James. Okay, so we're playing that game. He's talking to LeBron without talking to LeBron, right? We're playing that game. Okay. And the Cavaliers are now the massive favorites to land LeBron James. We saw all the reasons why. But we also saw the big negative that Rich Paul put up there in terms of no Darius Garland. All right, what else we got? All right, that's probably about it. I have some stuff on Jaylen Brown. I'm gonna get into that in a separate video. So if you're here on YouTube, you should probably subscribe, tap in over there. If you're on the audio side, on the podcast side, you should jump over to the YouTube side and tap in. I'm really doing, the community is growing and we're getting these streams going, and I like where the growth is going. So I'm going to be doing some Jaylen Brown stuff in a separate video. I already got my notes and stuff I want to talk about on that. But yeah, the whole Jaylen Brown stuff, there's so much more going on in regards to Jaylen Brown. Can't wait to get into that. Let's see. All right, I think that's about it. All right, so I see there's still a good deal of y'all here in the chat. There's 12 of y'all in the chat on the stream. I appreciate y'all for pulling up. I appreciate the time. What I would like for you to do, if you have not subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe. If you have not hit the like button to let YouTube and the algorithm know that you thought this stream was pretty dope, that helps for the replay, for the video on demand portion, would greatly appreciate it. But I go by the name of DCMD. I'm a almost 20-year sports media veteran. I use that information that I've learned over the years, being a scout, being a podcaster, doing content on my own, and just taking all that knowledge and trying to funnel that information to you here. So if you want to get that type of, if you want to continue to get that type of information, go ahead and subscribe, tap in, turn the bell on for notification. Try to do a stream at least once a week. We've been aiming at Mondays. We've been knocking down Monday streams for like a little bit here. So it seems like Monday is a good sweet spot for everyone to be able to pull up in the morning time as you're at the gym, on your way to work, all that type of stuff, or maybe you're already at work. Whatever the case may be, I enjoy your participation in the stream. Let me know. So I go by the name of DCMD. This has been, for the audio side, the DCMD podcast. On the YouTube side, this has been Timeline T, DCMD YouTube channel, all that good stuff. Good stream today. Really good conversations, really good information in the chat. Always appreciate y'all pulling up. I appreciate people sharing the content. The channel's growing. We're getting a lot of information out there. I am committed to growing this channel to where I think it needs to be. This is part of what I want to do. It's a passion project of mine. So obviously always continue to bring what I think is important, but feel free to give me feedback. Feel free to send me suggestions of what you like, what you don't like, what you think I tweak, all that stuff. I'm not a hater. Despite what people in the Michael Strahan video will tell you, I am not a hater. I think I know what I know, and I know what I think. So I just take it from that POV. So anyway, I'll go by the name of DCMD. I got to run. I will catch y'all on the next stream next Monday. Or if you want to stay tapped into the YouTube channel, I'll have videos dropping throughout the week. All right? Catch y'all. Peace.